We just spent whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. And when the money ran out, there was always a credit card that we could depend upon to pick up the slack. Spending money is a lot like the fish tank syndrome, right? You grow to the size of your tank. The more income you have, the more you spend. So that outpacing of income versus spending never happened, and our debt just turned into a big snowball rolling down the hill.
Welcome to the Couple Money Podcast, the show where we share stories and advice on building your marriage and wealth together. I'm Elle Martinez. Support for this podcast comes from Jumpstart Your Marriage and Your Money course. This self-paced video course is designed to help you two get on the same page with money, dump your debt faster, and build wealth as a team. Get lifetime access and bonus videos on retiring early and paying off your mortgage faster for $27. You can check out the show notes or head over to couplemoney.com/jumpstart. How invested are you in your marriage and your money? I know, kind of a weird question to ask you, considering you're listening to this podcast. But hear me out. I'd love to say that merging your lives and finances is really easy. The truth is, though, even if you two are deeply in love, it can take time to find your rhythm and your path. I haven't met anyone yet who wants to be stressed out over money in their marriage. But I have seen, and I know from personal experience and talking with others, that we can mess up and it easily gets out of control. Sometimes we get into a tight spot and we don't know what to do. And that's why I want to share this interview again. Out of all the episodes I've recorded, this has got to be one of my favorites because it captures what incredible things you can do together. And it also honestly shows the hardest part is having that first conversation and opening up. Imagine you had to come clean to your husband or wife about how much debt you were in. Everything looks fine. Got a nice house, jobs are great, kids are doing well, but you're barely keeping your head above water. Travis found himself in this exact situation, and he was handling the numbers. And after a setback, he had to admit that they had $109,000 of credit card debt. What would you do if you were him? What would you do if you were her? In the last few months, we've had tens of thousands of new listeners joining us, and I feel like now is a good time to cue up this interview again. There are so many great takeaways from their story. But the core of it is what I asked earlier. How invested are you in your marriage and your money? I hope you enjoy.
It was just a continuous overspending week after week, month after month. We didn't have a budget. We didn't talk about how we were spending our money. We didn't talk about our income versus our expenses, and we just spent whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. And when the money ran out, there was always a credit card that we could depend upon to pick up the slack. Right? We always had this viewpoint that the next pay increase, because we both had good jobs, the next pay increase would outpace our spending, right? Get our income to outpace our spending. And of course that never happened because spending money is a lot like the fish tank syndrome, right? You grow to the size of your tank. The more income you have, the more you spend. So that outpacing of income versus spending never happened, and our debt just turned into a big snowball rolling down the hill. In the beginning, we were both aware, very aware, right? We knew that we were accumulating debt together, and again, we always, had these discussions. Well, I'm going to get a raise, next month, and then we'll be able to start paying it down. Or how much is our debt now? Well, we have this much on this card, this much on this card, and it adds up to about this. But then after a while, as that number just continued to grow and grow, I really got kind of embarrassed about that number and embarrassed that we weren't doing anything about it. And it got to the point where the amount of debt that we were having was really having an impact on the amount of money we actually had, right? I mean, any minimum payment is going to affect the amount of money you actually had. But you get to the point where, I was taking cash out of credit cards, using credit cards just to be able to sustain what we had been doing. And then some. Okay. And at that point, I started basically not communicating with my wife anymore. The most we talked about finances was her asking me, "Are we doing okay financially?" And I would of course say yes, because to say no would be admitting that I was, at least in my mind at that time, admitting that I was a failure as both a husband and a father, and I wasn't equipped to handle that at that time.
Okay.
So, as we progressed through our debt accumulation years, my wife became less and less aware of what our financial state really was.
That situation changed when Travis faced the reality of how bad their finances were.
It was June of 2009, and I remember the day I got the mail, and we had 5 letters in there from a major credit card provider that we had 5 accounts with, and every letter was identical except for the account number on it, and basically it was saying that they were changing their minimum payment policy from 1% of your balance monthly to 2.5%. And that doesn't sound like, a huge change, but when you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars in credit card debt, when I started to calculate what that was going to do to our minimum payments, I knew that we were done. Right? It was going to sink us financially. There's no way that we were going to be able to make those payments. And at that point, I had to have a very, very open and honest conversation with my wife about where our finances really were. I think it was more of, at least initially, disbelief. Right? I mean, she knew that we were in debt. We knew that we had credit card debt, but the first question was, well, how much credit card debt do we really have? And at that point, I had gone into survival mode. Right? It was just trying to get to the next paycheck, to be, how am I going to get through the next 2 weeks? And I didn't even know. I didn't want to know, so I didn't add up the numbers. And we added them up together, and we were both shocked to see that number of $109,000. At that point, I really didn't know what was going to happen. I wouldn't have blamed her if she would have packed up her stuff and walked out the door, to be honest with you, because marriage is all about trust, and I broke that trust for a lot of years to get us in the situation that we were in. Luckily, she stayed, and we together we started our road to recovery.
Before Travis went on and gave the details about how he and his wife Ani managed to get on their debt journey, I had to ask him why exactly he waited that long to tell her how bad it was. After all, they had acquired this debt over a decade of being married. At any point, he could have came clean, and it would have been a much smaller number to deal with. Travis's answer had nothing to do with the numbers, but instead how he felt about the situation.
Right, exactly, and and you can call it machismo, you can call it whatever you want, but as a father and as a husband, feeling that I'm supposed to ensure that everything is okay, I'm supposed to make sure that my family is well provided for, and to admit that we had, and the way that our society as a whole is built is to say that you can't afford something is to admit that you're a failure. And to have my wife or my kids ask me, can we do this? Can we go on vacation? Can we have this new thing or whatever? To say no, in my mind at the time, was saying, I was failing them as their provider, and that attitude and that perspective was the first thing that really needed to change for us to turn our finances around.
That realization and the changes that needed to follow didn't happen overnight. But from the beginning, the two of them were determined to work this out together.
Together, we talked about, bankruptcy was an option. We really wanted to avoid that if possible. The next idea was talk to our bank and see if there's some sort of consolidation loan, some way that they could help us. And that was kind of a humorous meeting in its own way. Basically, the bank employee that we talked to, representative, told us that his advice to us was to sink all of our available funds into paying our second mortgage down so that we could use a home equity loan to consolidate our debt. Yeah, and I just kind of stared at him, and I said, I'm not going to be able to make my payments next month. Basically he said there's nothing that he can do. And I said, there's a chance that I'm going to default on my mortgage if we can't do anything. And he had no advice for us. He had absolutely no advice for us. I don't know what he could have told us, but I think he was as shocked as we were about our situation at that point.
To make a bad situation even more stressful, Travis and Vonnie had less than 2 weeks to come up with a plan to fix their finances.
Yeah, it really was probably about 10 days
Wow.
because it was the next month's payment that was going to sink us. There was no way we're going to make the next payment. So we went to the bank the next day, and when that didn't work, as soon as we got home, I remember coming home from that appointment, I said, we got to figure something out. There's got to be some other option. And that's when we started searching the internet, because at that time, right, there was, that was kind of the whole economy was, and there's lots of people having debt problems, maybe not quite to the same extent, but there were people that were having financial difficulties across the country. And you heard these commercials on the radio for, debt reduction and debt relief plans. And I didn't know anything about them. So I started searching on the internet. We started searching on the internet, and really over the next 48 hours took a crash course in debt management plans and debt settlement plans, and kind of, checking the Better Business Bureau and reading reviews online. And we kind of narrowed our search down to 2 to 3 debt relief providers. And over the next probably another day, really kind of narrowed it down to one that we were going to give a call. And I remember it was actually our anniversary. It was June 29th. 2009. We called our debt relief provider that we ended up going with, and had about an hour and a half discussion with someone on the phone about how it works and asking questions. And people, the debt relief providers kind of get a bad rap, and rightfully so in some instances, because there are some shady characters out there, but there are also some legitimate debt relief providers, and luckily we got hooked up with a legitimate one, and he didn't, there's no pressure. He answered all of our questions, and he, the representative we talked to, actually suggested take time to think about it. I don't want you to rush into anything, and we thought about it for about 5 days at that point. And I remember spending hours and hours reading through their online community, reading reviews, doing research. And when we called them back 5 days later, we had about another 90-minute conversation with the same representative. And that's when we signed up for our debt management plan.
They decided to go with Care One's debt management program. I asked Travis how the payment system worked out for their family.
The payment was $2,489 a month.
Was that like less or more than your minimum payment?
So with the debt management program, the payments are usually about the same as what your minimum payments were prior to enrolling in the program. And I think it was very close. The difference, though, is that the interest rate, for example, we had several credit cards that had interest rates, 24%, 27%, and those dropped all the way down to 5% and 6%. So even though the payment amount is the same, such a greater amount of it is going towards your principal, allowing you to make progress on your actual balance as opposed to just flushing your money down the interest toilet every month.
With that much money going towards their debt each month, they were definitely knocking the balance down. But that wasn't the only change that the family made with their finances.
If we didn't fix the underlying problem, we would just end up right back where we started. And we realized that, and luckily we realized that, and we worked tirelessly at how are we going to do this different. And it really was an iterative process. It wasn't overnight. It took us a while to really figure out how much our lifestyle had to change to fit within the confines of our budget, right? Live within your means. Yeah. What did we have to change to do that? I look back to our lifestyle before, during our debt incurring phase, and it's just crazy, right? I mean, we would invite our neighborhood over for a party, on the weekend, and we would pay for everything. If we wanted to go on vacation, we would do it, and the credit card would pay for it. And so vacations were out. Weekend gatherings were out unless it was potluck sort of thing. That we had a hot tub in our backyard that got sold. It was a constant evaluation of every expense that we had, right? The first thing that got cut was all, basically all entertainment sort of things. And then we started looking at, how the usuals, right? How do you cut cable down? How do you get a handle on your grocery bill so that it's the same every month and it fits within your budget? Like I said, just a constant evaluation of every expense that you have. And once we got that cut all the way down, then it's very important that you don't completely cut fun out of your life, right? We did find ways, very inexpensive or free ways to have entertainment. And basically it was we've got a lot of things that we can do already inside of our house, right? We can have family movie night with Redbox and ice cream, and that's good enough. We can go for family bike rides, and that's a great way to have family time and still have fun and get outside. We can get together with our neighbors and have potluck, and it'll cost us nothing, right? I mean, all these things sound like common sense things to someone who's already living within their means, but to someone that was living greatly outside of their means for so many years, it took it was quite an effort to figure that out. Yeah. So the first thing that we knew we had to do is we needed to start talking about finances, period. And we tried a lot of different budget methods. We tried a lot of different systems, and being, kind of getting into the world of personal finance blogging, there's a lot of ideas out there, right, that I'd never heard of before, right? We tried the envelope method. We tried zero-based budgeting. We tried all kinds of different things. We tried different ways of sitting down and talking about our budget. And it took, it actually, to be honest with you, it took us 2.5 years to finally find the system that works for us. And for us, that system is we talk Sundays and Thursdays, right? Thursdays is before the weekend. We sit down and review our financial information, pay any bills that we need to pay, talk about what resources we have available and how we're going to spend that money over the weekend. And then Sunday evening, we regroup and we talk about what we did with our spending, how we stayed within our budget, how we're doing, what resources we have available, what expenses we have coming up for the upcoming week. Make sure we're on the same page. So Sundays and Thursdays are our days to sit down and talk.
Okay. And you still do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If it works, keep doing it.
Yes.
So.
Their financial system has worked so well for them that they have paid off all $109,000 of their debt. With that behind them, I asked Travis how they're spending their money now and what are their plans for the future.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things that once we got out of debt, there's quite a few things that we had been kind of putting off because, we couldn't afford it or we weren't able to do so. The first was we needed to refinance our mortgage because we had played the creative financing game when we built our house 10 years ago, and we were on an adjustable rate mortgage, which turned out to work out in our favor because interest rates just kept on dropping. But signs are that's not always going to be the case. So we wanted to get that, and our second mortgage was interest only, which is never a good thing. So we wanted to get everything combined together. We wanted to get our mortgage where we wanted it to be. So that was the first thing that we did. After that, we started looking, we're starting to look now at what's our right retirement strategy? How do we invest our money for the future? What should we be doing to help get our kids ready for college? some amount of sigh of relief of, okay, we can loosen the belt a little bit, right? So, one of the things that we did was, I'm not a big fan of eating out, and part of that is, comes from our 4.5 years of debt repayment, of just how expensive it is to eat out. But, we figured if we increased our grocery budget and we buy better foods to eat at home, then that, might reduce our temptation to go eat out at restaurants and actually be cheaper. So, we increased our grocery budget a little bit. So those are some of the things that we've done. And we continue to reevaluate all of our monthly expenses. And, we're just trying to get things to where we want them to be long-term for the next 20 or 30 years.
Before we finish the interview, I asked Travis if he had any advice for couples having a hard time talking about money.
I tell them that to sit down and have that conversation with their significant other, and to start doing it every day, right? The best way to become more comfortable with it is to do it. Do it every day. Reconcile your checking account every day for 5 minutes with your loved one, and just share your goals and your dreams with each other. That's what a relationship and a marriage is supposed to be about. And that's not just about your career goals or the things you want to accomplish in life. That comes to your finances as well. What are your goals? What are your dreams to achieve financially, and work on them together.
Even though Travis and his wife have paid off their debt, Travis is still helping people square up their money over at enemyofdebt.com. Please check it out. He has a lot of great articles. I'll share a few of my favorites in the show notes, as well as resources you can use to dump your debt. Don't forget, the Jumpstart Your Marriage and Your Money course is out now. It focuses on the big wins. We're not clipping coupons or pinching pennies. We're talking about how you can stop fighting about money, create a budget you both love, automate your finances, and pay off your debt faster. Just head over to couplemoney.com/jumpstart. And if you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. You'll get the latest stories and tips sent to you. It's free and easy. We're out there on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Overcast, and more. You can also grab the feed off our site so you can listen to the show from whatever podcast service app you prefer. Our theme song was written and performed by Gentle Regime. Additional music by Music for Makers. Finally, I want to say thank you. Couple Money Podcast is made possible because of awesome listeners like you. Your tweets, reviews, likes, and more are so encouraging. Thank you. If there's a topic or question you want covered on the show, just let me know. I hope you have a great week. Take care.